Hey, welcome to the show. This show is about combat today. Life is combat. The spiritual life is especially a combat. One element of that combat is porn. We're not supposed to be watching porn. We're not made for it. It's totally unnatural. It's totally destructive to persons, marriages, and families. So if you're someone you love is looking at porn and they want to stop, or you want to help them go to zero, check out covenanteyes.com. My name, Patrick, gets you 30 days for free. This episode of the Patrick Coffin Show brought to you by Covenant Eyes. It's the best blocker and accountability software I've ever come across. All our devices have it. It's a terrific resource. For 30 days, you can try it for free. Go to covenanteyes.com. Put my first name, Patrick, in as a coupon code. You get to test drive this bad boy for 30 days. Coming up next, Bas Rutten on the Patrick Coffin Show. Don't go away. Told you today was about combat. Bas Rutten is an actual legend of the world of MMA, or mixed martial arts, kickboxing. He's also an inductee into the UFC Hall of Fame and is the former UFC champion of the world. Bas is also an actor, having appeared in several movies, including Here Comes the Boom, starring Kevin James and Henry Winkler. Bas, so great to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me.
I met Kevin James a couple years ago at San Diego. He probably wouldn't remember me. We went out to dinner with a little guy by the name of Tim Staples and some other people from Catholic Answers when I was there. And he just seems like a sweet-hearted, introverted, very talented guy. And so it's a nice connection to make.
A very good guy, and he's a very good Catholic as well. So
he is.
What a combination that is.
100%. We'll get to that in your journey. But I just want to mention at the top, I know a lot of high-quality Dutchmen. My best man, Dr. Terry Vanderheyden's family's from Nijmegen in the Netherlands. He lives in Ontario now. And two of my favorite magicians, I do close-up professional magic, and one of my mentors is Tommy Wonder, famous Dutch magician. He's deceased now, God rest his soul. And the other is a magician by the name of Fred Kaps, K-A-P-S. Now, I don't know if these guys were famous inside the Netherlands, but Fred Kaps, while he was a genius, he had the misfortune of appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show right after the Beatles.
Ouch.
Kind of inauspicious TV debut, but you guys you Dutch used to rule the world.
We did, right? We're amazing. We got great bridge builders. We're great boat builders. Of course, we have the tulips, chocolate, you name it. We invented the CD player. That's what I tell the people all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Philips did that great job. So, yeah, no, we have some great people in that little tiny country.
Now, when I saw, I began to listen to your testimony on YouTube, and I decided to stop because I didn't want to repeat stories. So I'm just coming at your conversion story and just sort of how you got into fighting, the fighting mixed martial arts game. You were not a natural fighter as a kid, right? You have health problems and you were more the object than the perpetrator. Yeah,
I was born with a bad skin disease, eczema, which was really prominent on my hands and arms and in my neck. I had to wear turtle sleeves. I had to wear gloves. Also, because it would look horrible. And with that comes asthma. I had asthma and severe asthma attacks. Like every 6 weeks, I would be for a week or 8 days in bed, not even to able to eat because I simply couldn't breathe. So, yeah, that's where everything comes from. Because, of course, the bullying, the leper. I was the leper. That's what kids called me. You know, watch out, your ears don't fall off.
Unclean.
I was unclean. And you know what? I never liked that word until I got back into the faith and I said, oh, man. Is the word they use in the Bible. Yeah, right. Jesus cleansed all the lepers. So I'm embracing it right now. I'm actually always embraced it because it set me on my career path.
Well, that's a great life lesson. The thing that caused you the most heartache and trial and basically your weakness was transmuted into your greatest strength.
You know, and another great thing is when I was a kid, I was a very good athlete. But after, of course, running was always bad for me, the 1,500 meters. I was going to do decathlon. I was literally, the one I looked up to was Bruce Jenner. Yep. He was the 1976 gold medalist in the decathlon. I wanted to become one as well. I did really good in everything, but the running, of course, was hard. But after an asthma attack, if I would resume track and field, my lungs would be better. And then I saw at a poster at the doctor, at the doctor's office, I saw a poster on the wall with a drawing of the pair of lungs. And that inspired me to make up a lung training device that I invented now. and it's actually curing asthma. I'm literally today after Mass with another guy. We're going to have an appointment with the FDA because we're going to see now we have a 100% success rate. So you see, my career started, but I also came up with an invention when I was 14 years old, but also that also came from my disease.
Are you able to summarize what this device is and what it does?
It's very simple. You know, I realized when I saw the lungs on the poster, as a kid you think the lung infection is in the lungs, but it's not. It's in the air pipes that go to the lungs. And they showed a picture of an infected lung air pipe and a normal one. And the infected was, of course, closed, and the other one was open. And I'm literally going, oh man, I've been working out my lungs. I've been training my inspiratory system. I've been pulling air in through a really tiny hole that make my inspiratory system stronger. And because of that, when the asthma is gone and when the infection is gone, it's all good. I got to go. Let's go back. Stop. Okay. Can you stop?
If I were that guy, I would definitely stop if I were him.
Thank you. So, I guess they forgot to tell him. But anyway, that's how I found out, because then when I would resume track and field, I would break my running times every time. And it drove me nuts until I saw that poster. And bada bing, bada boom, the idea was born. And I stopped making it about 7 years ago, cured me from my asthma within 3 weeks. Then I sent one to my friend in Holland who has asthma. Yeah. Within 8 days, he called me. He says, Bas, I want to sell this in Europe. I mean, my asthma is gone. It's incredible. I don't have to carry an inhaler anymore. People don't understand. I had to carry an inhaler everywhere I went. Every world title fight that I had in my life, I had to open my lungs in the dressing room. So, you know, to be able not to walk around with an inhaler anymore, that's very cool.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I would ask you a few more questions, but that would just be so I could steal the idea and make a lot of money. But we'll just we'll move on.
It's a worldwide patent. Thankfully,
that's phenomenal. Congratulations. That's a huge win. Was there a time, Bas, when the tide turned when you were a kid, where the first bully ran into the new improved Bas and it didn't work out well for the bully? Tell that story.
Yeah, so I asked my parents a long time to do martial arts. This was Taekwondo, was at the time the sport. And it took me 2 years of begging because they thought it was violence. And finally, I got taken under the wings of an older guy. He was dating my neighbor. She was a really beautiful girl. She had the coolest guy in town, so to say. His name was Xavier. In Holland, you say Xavier. Mm-hmm. And he brought me to his class, but now I was training with adults. And within months, I started beating up the adults, and then I started overhearing them talking about me in the dressing room. You know, did you see Bas, the little guy, man? He dropped Jack, and everybody's laughing. Man, that kid is getting really good. And that was around the time that the biggest bully in my school decided to pick a fight with me. He was with 6 or 7 of his friends on bicycles, and they came biking towards me. And again, hey, lepers, and they said something. And this time I said something back. And I heard them laugh. I looked backwards, and I saw them all turn around, and they started to chase me. So I put my bike on the stand, and I said, you know what? I'm not gonna run anymore. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna face what I'm going to have to face. And they surrounded me with their bikes. I always have to laugh about this because in the cool movies, it's always old cars in the middle of the night, and the headlights are the lighting for the fight. You know, this was during the day with little kids with bikes around me. And then, of course, Shaki came, and he started bouncing his chest into me and challenging me. Do you want to knock me out? Do you want to hit me? And I go, okay. So I gave him one punch, realizing that the bully was not as strong at all. He broke his nose in the process, though, which was a problem because that meant that they had to go to the hospital, and then the police showed up. Yeah. And, of course, my mom and dad immediately took me off from martial arts. But the bullying stopped 95%. You know, the only ones who wouldn't know about the story, those poor bastards, they would go through the same thing then. But for the rest, it was perfect sliding from that moment on.
Now, what do you say to parents who were kind of the same cast of mind as your parents, that the best solution to dealing with bullies is just to ignore them, live and let live, just kind of, you know, keep your head down? Yeah.
No, I did that. I did that for 14 years, and it doesn't work. You know, they speak a certain language, bullies, because they're idiots. You know, they're not mentally very up there. The IQs are low, and it's all proven, you know. So these guys don't understand normal language. The only language they understand is the language they bring to you. That's what I always say. And although I never promote fighting, I do tell you, 14 years I've been bullied, and one punch changed my life immediately. So, you know, to say it doesn't work, I cannot say that, because for me, it actually did, and he deserved it.
How many different fighting styles have you kind of mastered? I've seen a list on your website. Krav Maga. I studied Krav Maga for a couple of years in Los Angeles. I loved it. It was the closest thing to an actual street fight right? They try to replicate the surprise and so on. But I thought I was walking into a introductory class. It was a level 2 class. And I was up against my sparring partner was 45 pounds heavier than I was. And at the end, I could hardly breathe. I was exhausted. He goes, yeah, you're pretty good. This is my first class. What? You're in the wrong class. So Krav Maga, Taekwondo, you rose very high in black belt level in karate. What was that?
It's a Kyokushin karate. That was an honorary degree, though. I got the 5th degree. I have a 2nd degree in that. And I have a 2nd degree in Sian Thai karate. And then a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. And then I was a Thai boxer on top of that. And that's how I started my MMA career, not knowing any submissions, like judo, jiu-jitsu, nothing on the ground I didn't know yet.
Now, for people who watch UFC or MMA on the internet, they might know the Gracie family. Hoist Gracie was famous for being able to take down guys twice his size using grappling and submission holds. You came late to that, right?
Well, actually, the submission holds I came late. I actually started fighting before the UFC started. I was over in Japan 2 months before it. It's September, 93. UFC, I think the first one was in November. But yeah, at the time, we all thought, all the people in the world pretty much, we thought that the strikers were the tough guys.
Yep.
And that's where we realized it wasn't the case. I also realized that when I had my first grappling class, I had to park my car next to the road going back home because it was in Amsterdam, which is like an hour, 45 minutes away from where I used to live, all the way in the south. Mm-hmm. And I called my wife. I said, listen, I'm in the car. I'm going to go sleep in the car. I'm completely crushed. I mean, they put me through the ringer. And she was laughing the next day. She said, oh, so that's it? This is your free fighting? Because that's what they called it at the time, experience. I said, no, that's not it. I said, within 6 months, I'm going to tap everybody there. You watch. And it all came true. It's just doing it a lot.
So you did? You did?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And did you never turn back? Did you figure this free fighting style is the way to go because there's not the son of rule limit that you can do whatever you want?
No, there were rules. I have to be honest. Like at the first UFC, there were no rules. Pretty much anything went. There was no eye gouging, no biting, but that's pretty much was it. You could do anything. You could literally hit them in the pills, right? So it was not that good. And there was also no referee. And
no referee.
No referee. The referee was not allowed to jump in. And Frank Shamrock in September 93, I fought my first fight. Ken Shamrock, his brother, was also there. And he was telling me that he was going to compete in that. And I told him, I said, there's no referee. Yeah. I go, I wouldn't do that. He says, why wouldn't you do that? I said, because if I get knocked out and the guy gets excited, jumps on top of me, and he gives me 6 more extra punches, that's going to lead to some serious problems for me. So no, I said, if there will be a referee, I would like to try it. And that didn't happen for the first 2 UFCs, but then thankfully the referee, Big John McCarthy, said, you know what, someone's going to die, I'm going to need to step in at the moment because there were already people also, for instance, the corner could throw the towel. So he wanted to stop a fight, this referee, but was not allowed, and he looked at the corner, and while he looked at the corner, the whole corner turned away from him. They didn't want to look at him. So afterwards, this guy got mauled. It was Tank Abbott. He got mauled by his opponent, and afterwards, of course, he went to the corner from Tank Abbott. He said, hey, why didn't you guys throw the towel? Well, he told us if he would throw the towel, he would beat me up. He would beat us up. You see, so that's the moment he stepped in. I said, listen, if nobody can jump in, that's it. I'm gonna remove myself from this because I think something bad is going to happen. And thankfully, he was this big guy who invented all the rules, the mixed martial arts rules, because there are rules now. He did that all. And weight classes, all that stuff. So they wanted to keep him, and they changed it. And from that moment on, it became much, much more safe.
Did you ever get bitten?
No, in Thai boxing, I got bitten one time. In my ear, he bit a hole straight through my ear. It resulted in a complete brawl because all my friends were there. The bouncer friends that I have and the Hells Angels were his friends. And they all started bouncing until they stopped. They shouted at the audience because they thought I was wrong because I kneed him in the groin. Because I warned him 3 times. I said, let go. And then after the 3rd time, you see me loading up, and he came loose from the ground. And he fell on the ground. I wanted to attack him, but then everybody jumped on top of me. And then when they realized that he bit straight through my ear, like a complete hole through it, that's where everybody calmed down and said, okay, no, he was just defending himself.
So isn't that the origin of the song, Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting? Wasn't it that incident?
That was literally, listen, I'm looking for that video still because it's such a funny video. What happens is, everybody starts fighting, and somebody throws in a chair, and it's a plastic chair, and it bounces on the back of my trainer. And I saw this later on video, and it flies over me, and it lands on 4 legs behind me. And you see me looking at everybody fighting, and I look behind me, I see the chair, and I sit in the chair while everybody's fighting. It is the best video. I need to find it.
The reigning king, audience member observing the chaos. That is crazy. Do you ever been scared that you might die in the ring? Did it get to that edge where you thought I might be in trouble?
No. And I've always been that guy also who said, I don't want to. All these fighters, they go, my wish is to die in the ring, and I don't care if I die in the ring. I said, not me, man. I have a family that I love very much. If there's a possibility for me with a weird choke, even if this choke is well applied, you can die. It's the problem when they do it wrong. And thankfully, on that level, people do things right. So if I would feel I'm in danger of my life, I would immediately tap. I don't choose my life before the sport. That's 100%.
Why isn't the devil's advocate question? Why isn't all this totally immoral? I mean, think of it from an outsider's perspective. If you have no inside knowledge apart from watching Muhammad Ali as a kid, why isn't it immoral when your whole goal here is to damage the organ that runs your opponent's life, his brain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but that's the same with boxing, right?
It is the same. I agree.
Actually, with kickboxing and boxing, it's way worse than it is with mixed martial arts.
Why?
Because boxing and kickboxing, what you do, you spar every day. And guess what's going to be the hit the most is the head, right? In mixed martial arts, one day you do grappling, one day you do submissions, one day it's wrestling, one day it's striking. So you spar way less. Also, in MMA, there is no 8 count. An 8 count is a very dangerous rule because the 8 count means that your body tells you, your mind tells you, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. You get hit, you go down. In MMA, that's the end of the fight. In MMA, actually, if I'm sitting on top of you and I start raining down punches and you block every punch, but they feel that within seconds the punches might slip through and hurt your opponent, they will pull the opponent off of you and the fight is over. They go through this so many times in the rules meeting. They say, if they hit you and you do not defend yourself intelligently, we will stop the fight. So don't come complaining to me if you don't get out to a better position. If you just lay there, well, eventually I'm going to penetrate through the defense, of course.
Yeah.
So that's when in MMA, they stop the fight immediately. 8 count, there's no 8 count in MMA. You get dazed, fight is over. So they don't let you recoup for 10 more seconds and then come back to get some more damage. You see, so there's a big misconception from people that, that it is barbaric and it looks like that. But once you start doing it and you see, listen, I have an opponent, one guy is standing right in front of me. I know exactly what he's going to do because I train for that 2 or 3 times a day. And he knows the same thing about me. We also not animals. Like if I have an arm bar, I can break it. I can break his leg. I can do whatever I want. But you never do that. I never saw a guy doing that on purpose. Once you have it, it's tight. You very gently start pulling, and then you give him the chance to tap or not tap. Now, if he decides not to tap, which happened in the past, but they go very slow, you might dislocate your arm or even break your arm. But that's not on the guy. He should have been smart and said, you know what? I'm going to tap. I want to fight in 2 months again. Maybe a broken arm is not good for me.
And for fighters, because I've seen Royce Gracie in the end of his career. The guy's obviously tapping out, and he's just, until the ref pulls him off, that damages your reputation, doesn't it? There's a sort of a gentleman's agreement with MMA that you're not a sadist.
That it really is that. That it's also like everything is holy, family is holy. You can't go, in the pregame, you can't start talking bad about family or religion or all these things. It's solely towards you. So it is. The referee needs to be a very good referee. And if you have a good referee, he will see immediately, because the referee trains himself as well, what is bad and where he cannot escape from anymore. And then he needs to stop the fight. Now, of course, we all make mistakes, especially we Catholics know that. And referees sometimes also let it go a little bit too long, but they get an avalanche of criticism about that. But then again, in other fights, sometimes you see a person who got beaten and you go like, they should stop the fight. They should stop the fight. Everybody's screaming, yet then the guy flips it around and wins the fight. You see, and if you look at those kind of fights, you go like, still, I would have stopped the fight. Yeah, but I won, the guy said. I said, yeah, but you took a lot of damage. Do you still want to talk to your kids when you grow old? That's the big question.
That's right.
But I always tell people, you should use hand movement. I did it. Always people say, oh, you look good. I said, because I didn't like to get hit. I don't mind to get hit. But, if I can avoid it, why would I want to get hit?
Mm-hmm. I read somewhere that you, 2 of your losses, you agreed to the fight once on a New Year's Eve when you had it one too many, and the other, I think you forgot that you signed up. What were those? The two fights that you didn't win. Remember, you know what I'm referring to?
Yes. Okay. So the first one, that was stupid because I took the fight when I was drunk and I had no clue. And that was New Year's Eve, and they called me in February and they asked me where to send the posters to. Now, imagine, understand, I didn't train for 3 or 4 years. Nothing. I was a bouncer. Actually, he asked me that on the job at New Year's Eve. And I said, what posters? He says, from the fight. I said, who's fighting? He says, you. I said, I'm fighting? Who's fighting? He says, Frank Lotman. I said, the animal, because that was his nickname. The guy was undefeated, 43-0, whatever, with like 41 knockouts. He was an animal. He just came out of jail. He was training in jail to restart his career, and then he could stay, on the good side of the law. That was the whole intention of that fight. And
Wow.
I said, sure. So, but now I had only 2.5 weeks to train against a guy who they call the animal. So I should have never fought that fight, but, unfortunately I did, and I found out that, because I knocked everybody out. My first 12 opponents were all knockouts. And I thought, 2.5 weeks, it's not for me. My ego came up, my pride. And I learned the hard way. I lost that fight.
Well, in this case, pride literally went before a fall.
Yeah. Pride's the worst one, right? That's all. They say all people in hell are proud.
Right. Yeah. You know the theme song of Hell?
No.
Frank Sinatra's "My Way."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
My way. Yeah.
Because when people when they talk about the morality of football, and they say, well, look, there's a lot of football injuries every year. You got the concussion problem. And the response to that is, but those are secondary, unintentional injuries. Usually football players don't try to create brain injuries in their opponent. They want to bring them down. If they get hurt, that's kind of a byproduct. Where with MMA, your whole intention is to either knock the guy out, render him unconscious, or so he can't fight anymore. So I think that's where people have the moral question.
Yeah, but my answer for that is, I know you're going to hit me. I know ways to get power out of that punch. I had to close the distance so the punch cannot travel as far. Instead of stretching out, suddenly I bring the target here so he can only do this. Or I move away from it and I take the steam out of the punch. Football is a different thing because you're running, you're focusing on the ball, and suddenly out of the blue you get tackled from the back, and then they hit you when you don't expect it. And that's why these whiplashes are so big, so grand, because they get hit at the moment they don't expect it. We know when somebody's going to hit. And most of the time, it's always when somebody gets knocked out, is the one that they don't see coming. It's the one that's been set up perfectly with a combination, and you don't see coming, your body's not ready for it. But if you see a punch and you're in good shape, you can either brace it, you can move with it, you can duck it, you can block it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. So, yeah, that would be my counter. I think we are used to it and know how to deal with it. They get it while they're just running on the field, focusing on one thing.
All right, let's turn to your faith now. A lot of Catholics in the Netherlands, as in Germany and Belgium in the last 50 years, the church has had a terrible exodus out of the church. Devastating. But the ones who stayed, the ones who were kind of reconnected with the faith of their childhood, tend to be really on fire. And I understand that your relationship with Christ and your faith is very strong. That's part of your charisma, if you will, is your integration of your faith with the rest of your life. How did that happen? Oh,
yeah, it's a long story. Now, first of all, I have to mention a few things that I was attacked by a ghost, by a spirit, in my former house. 6-7 times at night, very scary, completely pressing me into the bed, not able to breathe, nothing, and we knew what it was because my daughter saw her. She saw this woman, and then we found out she actually passed away in the home. Now, what happened was she was attacked, only me. Nobody had a problem in the house with it. Now, at the time, I was a heavy drinker. It's a problem that a lot of fighters or athletes have. After they stop, you don't have that high anymore from knocking or submitting somebody or fighting in front of an audience. It gives you an enormous good feeling. That feeling is not there anymore. Yeah. You start trying to replace it with something. And with me, it was alcohol. And although I'm always a happy guy and dancing around, I'm not a good father. I'm not a good, not a good husband. I'm not a man. I'm not a real man. I don't have my faculties. Everything is in control. I don't have it under control. So I think that she didn't like me, that particular spirit, and that's why she was attacking me. We came home one time with the whole family, and I felt that somebody was in the house, so I told her, stay at the front door. I said, if you hear me struggle, I said, I want you to call the police. Don't worry about me. I'll fix this thing. I said, but don't bring the kids inside. Go, just leave. And there was a kitchen. We had a kitchen, an open kitchen, went to the back. And on this side, there was a dining room. And it was separated by a wall. And I felt that he was in the kitchen behind, because both of these paths, so the dining room and the open kitchen, would lead to the back kitchen. And so I figured somebody was hiding there. So I moved in on the right, and suddenly I made a U-turn, and I started sprinting the other way. And what do you know? We had a curtain hanging in front of a door post instead of a door. A really thick curtain. It flew up against the ceiling. So somebody ran through it. And I just kept running, but nobody was in the house. So that really made me realize something is going on. There's way more to this world that we can experience with our senses and see with our eyes. So then, and don't ask me how I knew this, I remember at 3 o'clock a.m., which I had no clue because I completely left the faith at the time. At 3 a.m., I went to that spot because it was a chandelier. It was always cold. There was a really weird smell there. And I challenged the ghost there for like 45 minutes. I said, listen, every time that sucker punching thing that you're doing in bed, it's nice and dandy, but try to do it now. I challenge you right now. I want to fight. Let's see if you can do it. But you got to go up to my level, right? It's easy to win if you're much more powerful. But let's do this thing. And I just kept pushing it. And somehow it never happened to me. It's funny because I told Father Ripperger, he's a world-renowned exorcist. He's a good friend of ours as well. And he said, yeah, only you, Bas. You should never do this. But I guess it's only you. So I had all these experiences. And then I started doing a movie with Kevin called Mall Cop 2. And Kevin had some...
Mall Cop 2, yeah.
Yeah, and he had some theologians come to the set. And priests also. And he said, hey, he's going to have a reading. You want to sit in? It's 45 minutes, Bas. And it was Leo Severino. He actually wrote a book about this reading. And it started, it was called The Leaf Fell from the Tree. And what he's doing, the leaf fell from the tree. Then he says, okay, now let's start backtracking that leaf. It goes back to the branch. And the tree goes to the tree before. And he starts doing it in such a way that you realize, okay, we are designed. It's without 100% proof once you hear that story. So if you know people who don't believe in God, that's the first step. I say buy that book, Going Deeper, from Leo Severino. Now, what cool was with that story is that I have a super vivid memory. We were just talking about it. I just came back from a retreat also. We were talking about those kind of memories. Yeah. And that was when I was 10 years old. I was looking outside the window in the classroom, and I heard everybody laughing and the teacher screaming. I didn't realize it was for me. And suddenly he said, Rutten! And I'm looking at him, go, what? He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking at that tree. He goes, what about the tree? I said, how did it get there? And he said, well, they planted it there. And I go, no, that's not what I mean. I said, the tree before, but when you go all the way back, where does the first tree come from? How did it get here on Earth? So when Leo started talking about the leaf fell from the tree, goes back, start backtracking the leaf, getting eventually to solid proof of the very existence of God, I go like, okay, he got my attention, because that was my question when I was 4 years old. And why was that such a vivid memory? I think literally that God planted the seed, excuse me, together with the ghost attack and with the experience that I had. Yeah, that was it for me.
That's amazing. The tree image, because I have an unusually vivid memory for some things as well. My childhood experience was something similar, but it didn't involve a tree. I was probably about 4, maybe 5. It's one of those standout memories. I'm in the front lawn, and my little child brain suddenly had this question: why is there something and not nothing? Yeah. And I was sort of obsessed with it. I mean, I look at my hand. I exist. Well, I came from my parents, but they've got parents, and their parents have parents. That's not satisfactory. Now, I had no idea that this is, one of the avenues of Thomas Aquinas' proofs, but it just goes to show you that God makes us for himself. He implants this wonder, this curiosity from a very early age. That's interesting.
He really does. Yeah, no, he really does. Same with your conscience, that's what the whole beautiful say. Deep down within your body, there's, a law inscribed by God that you didn't know about, So it is. We all wired to learn the truth. That's all about the truth. And I wish that people would get that, and not go the opposite. I think Catholicism is not cool anymore. Well, if they go back all the way to the Catholicism, to the knights and all those guys were the real men. I mean, those guys were so good to people, so net. There was no unnecessary violence. Everything was ordered and structured. They're the best family men, and teaching your son weaponry, but also how to build a home and to do this. I mean, every day he was the perfect guy, had to be very classy. He's almost like a sir, You know,
Yeah.
that's why it was a knight. That's why they call you sir in England, because they were
Right.
such a great people, such great gentlemen, real gentlemen, decent people. And I think they have a wrong vision nowadays. They think we're praying, there's weak people. I say, so you think I'm weak? And they go, no, not you, because of course to me, they'll never say that. I go, but dude, I said, that's the thing. You only have to go, let's say, 50 hours a year to church, and nobody wants to do it. But once you start doing that, and once you start getting in touch with really smart theologians, and that was my blessing, that I had really good guys teaching me, then there is no other way, and it absorbs me. Now this morning at 7:30, I did already daily mass. I do my rosary, I did stretching, I did my prayers, I did a whole bunch of prayers, daily readings. That all happened already before 9 o'clock when we started this interview. I love that, because that's time for myself. And actually at noon, I'm going to go again to mass, but this is only today because I have that meeting with the O2 trainer person afterwards. And that's a person for mass who set me up with that. So Today I got a double.
Settle a rumor, Bas. Do you pray prayers in Latin because it ticks off the devil? Is that true?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, pretty much everything of it.
Where do you find the Latin translations for? Because I have an app called iBreviary, so that's my go-to daily prayer, and I know there's the Roman Missal that has English and Latin, but those are the readings for Mass. Where'd you find all these Latin sources?
It's a prayer that I did online, but I have the Laudate app, and I
Laudate app,
I go to the Latin prayers, and then I think the Dutch and Latin, they have a lot of similarities in pronunciation. Like the O is a O instead of O, but there's an accent on, the same with the E and the F. So I think we have only with the C, cello, that's something that you have to learn. But once you learn that, you see that, it's pretty easy to do. Plus, then I have really Leo Severino, or Father Justin, he's my spiritual director. I give him a call. I say, hey, do I pronounce this correctly? And then he says, no, you have to pronounce it like this. Or he says, oh, yes, you're doing it correctly. So I just hammered it in there, and then I start doing it over and over. It started with the rosary, actually. 3.5 years ago, I started with the daily rosary. I go, why not do it in Latin? If that's the language that demons fear the most, let's start with that. And then it caught on, Everything that I can do to train my brain, especially before my acting and for all the other TV work that I do, memorizing. I read out loud a lot. I memorize every day a certain prayer that I do from an app that I have. I always try to keep my mind busy. So the more prayers I learn, the more I train my mind. That comes very in handy when I start acting or do any commentating job or whatever it is.
Have you heard of Harry Lorraine?
No.
Lorayne. He's my mentor. I do magic, but I'm fascinated by his teaching methodology for retaining facts, figures, numbers. Mr. Lorraine is 94 years old, and he was on Johnny Carson 23 times through the year. Through the years, he can meet 500 people one time and say all their names. He gets everybody stand up, and he goes to the audience with a microphone. He's just phenomenal. In fact, I'll put the link to my interview with Mr. Lorraine in the show notes at patrickcoffin.media. Bas, you're touching upon something really important about manly virtue and honor and courage and being a man, because a lot of men, they don't like church environments because they're very feminine. All the music's wonderful. It's just sort of kind of sentimental. There's a softness to so many church environments. What can men do to encourage other men to be leaders, to kind of get out of their own way and go back to the source?
Well, it's going to be like Francis Assisi says, right? You have to show me, don't tell me, because that's not going to work. Telling you, it's not going to work. And other strong guys, we have a great group. There's actors, there's Golden Globe boxers, there's, all good guys, who know how to handle themselves, but are perfect gentlemen. What is better than to be a perfect gentleman? And thankfully, I always lived my life that, yes, I used a lot of profanity, which I immediately cut out and all that kind of stuff. But I've never been this violent guy, although I did fighting. I've been the opposite. And I think it comes from my bullying. Yes, if I see somebody get bullied, it doesn't matter. There can be 20 people bullying one person. I'm diving in immediately. That's just how I'm wired. And I've always been like that. So for me to be virtuous, to step over, that was a pretty easy thing, though. Although I did a whole bunch of bad stuff as well. As a kid, my first confession, I was sweating bullets, and it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it's a funny story, by the way, because Kevin James told me to call him right after confession. And when I went into confession, it was raining. And 2 hours, 20 minutes later, I came out, and the sun was shining. There was not a cloud in the sky. It was pure, clear. So I'm calling Kevin. I said, man, I'm feeling awesome. It's like a weight is lifted from my shoulder. I said, check this out, dude. I went in. It was raining. I came out, and the sun is shining, clear skies. He goes, oh, no, 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 no. I go, whoa, 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 what? And he says, you make God cry. So that was a answer back.
That's awesome.
So show people what it is, and you cannot force them. That's like with little kids, and that's what men nowadays are, little kids, right? They want to do everything they want. It's all about pleasure. It's all about me, individualism. Everything is based towards them. So to wrap that around, it's a hard thing to do. They think they don't have the time for it. For instance, me, when I started getting more to go, I spent at least an hour and a half a day on the faith, and guess what? I have way more time than I used to have before, because now I'm perfectly structured to see this is not important. Oh, this thing, you won't see me on social media anymore. I do it, to promote events that I'm doing. I'm commentating on things like that, but most of the time out of myself, a picture a week, maybe something like that, because I stopped doing all these things that are not necessary. Why would I do these things? So I actually freed up a lot of time. I have more free time now than before, when I didn't spend an hour and a half a day on the faith.
It sounds like you're endorsing not only having a to-do list, but a not to-do list.
Oh, it's very important. Everything, you need to work on everything. It's a constant struggle. And especially the not to-do list. With me, don't judging. That's a big one for me, because we all do it. We all do it really fast. It's always mirroring. It's always like it's something that you're doing, and then you tell somebody he shouldn't do it, but you're doing it. People are always like that. And once you realize, like for instance, Conor McGregor, you heard about Conor McGregor, right?
I have, yeah.
The boxer. He's on top of the world right now. And he made a mistake. He got a little drunk, and he threw a thing against the bus, and then everybody spit him out. I go, listen, he needs to pay for what he did, but as a fan, don't spit this guy out. Well, you let him cast the first stone, right? That's exactly. I mean, don't say. I think it's worse to come home, beat your wife or your kids, or doing all that stuff. If he would have known, he would have hurt somebody, he would have never done it, because I know the guy. He's a good guy. Yeah. So back off a little bit. We all make mistakes. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. Thankfully for me, there was no social media at the time when I was competing. So it wasn't on camera. But get over it. Give people second chances.
Do other fighters ask you about your faith, Bas? I mean, you're married. You're a father. You kind of stand out. Because the image, at least, of an MMA fighter is a total maverick. He's maybe a bad guy, or he's sort of like the rated R guy, not the PG guy. Here you are, happily married. You go to mass all the time. You've got daily prayer routine. Do people ask you questions sort of on the side?
They do. A lot of guys come, and a lot of guys start getting interested. I put some guys in the faith. My friends also. And again, I'm not that guy who evangelizes. I evangelize at the moment it comes from them. Then I start, because once you start telling it yourself, and like those guys with the 20 verses in 1 minute, and they, this is this. I say, dude, you're pushing people away. You're a lunatic. That looks to them, if you're a lunatic, why would you do that? Hold back a little, because if you hold back, you pull more people in, or use those terms. For instance, I say I do these talks also, and for people. And they said a real man has to know how to defend himself. And if he can't defend himself, he has to buy a weapon, for his family. He has to do this. I said, it's actually already in the Bible. And those verses I remember. Luke 22:36. If you don't have a sword, sell your mantle and buy one. Why did you think he said that? It's for you to protect your family. That's your duty as a husband, to do that. And if you're not capable of it, well, you're going to have to get a weapon. And guess what? We're in America. Well, you're going to have to have a gun. But I don't like guns. I would do it anyway. Yeah, but it will never happen to me. All the people who are marked or who are home invasion had, they all said the same thing. It will happen. It's like the lotto. Somebody wins every time. Hit by lightning. It happens. It happens actually to a lot of people a year. So the chances are not that small. And I would say just be prepared for it, for if it happens. Hopefully you never need it, but it's good to be prepared.
Well, who wants to pay money for fire insurance until your house burns down, right?
That's it. That's how it goes with everything. You see that also with floodings, and then if it's not insured, it's gone. I should have done it. Yeah, but it never happened. Well, it just did.
I think it's more of a Catholic approach to evangelization to be more low key and not do the rat-a-tat-tat Bible verses. And with the classic verse, I know you know this, 1 Peter 3:15. Always have a ready reason for those who ask you of the hope that's in you. Well, what's the first pope saying there? Well, be in a state of readiness. Be ready. Not be a debate champion, not be annoyingly Catholic. Just be ready for that open door. Because then when people start asking, well, now, right, there's the opportunity to have a conversation because it came from them.
That's it. Yeah, I do it exactly the same. Or when they ask about it, what got you in? And when I tell the ghost story, I get attention right away. And from the ghost story, I start talking more and more and more. And then slowly they go like, wow, I never expected it like that. I went on the show, Jason Ellis, it's on XM, and he uses a lot of profanity. And I'm waiting outside. He's interviewing another person. And I remember, I overhear what they're talking about. They were talking about a nightclub that was built next to a church. And all these people, they would go out and it would pee against the church and the corrosion, it would ruin the church. So when I walked in, I thought, oh, that's my way to get in. So when I got introduced, I said, man, that whole church thing, you can't do that against the church, And of course, he took the bait. He said, oh, so your faith? I said, yeah, I'm a Catholic. Oh, you're a Catholic? How is that, And then how can you convince me to be a Catholic? I said, well, you do that irreducible complex thing, right? So I said, let's say, imagine we go to Mars. We just landed on Mars. We're walking there. And Leo did this to me with a mouse trap, and I had to find something. I had to beat him with less parts, and I found it. It's a clothespin. It's got only 3 parts, right? So I say, imagine we don't know what a clothespin is. It's stupid to imagine that because we just landed on Mars. But for the sake of the argument, I say that. So you're walking on Mars, and suddenly you bounce into a clothespin, and you grab that thing, and you go, that's a weird thing. Wow. I can put it on my finger. I can probably hold some papers with it. I can do this with. Would you think that somebody put it there? Or would you think that somehow a storm came and it shaped 2 identical symmetric little pieces of wood and it fell next to each other, and then out of the blue a coil came and started rolling up and it fell also exactly clapped in there and suddenly it was there. Now every single person, sane person, is going to say, well, no, somebody put it there. And I said, well, that is 3 parts. If you go look at an eye, you need 10,000 parts in an eye in order to do it. We're not even talking about DNA, right? So if you say 3 parts is the design, well, look at the body. If the eye has 2 million parts, but 10,000 of them they needed in order to function correctly, that's just one eye. You don't think that is a design? And then he looked at me and he goes, yeah, now you say it like that. And that's how it started. And it became funny because during the interview, every time when he wanted to drop an F-bomb, he goes, yeah, and he looked at me, he goes, oh, I almost did it. I go, dude, you're getting virtue.
That's
you're
awesome.
Stopping your profanity. So it was really cool to see that people, once you explain it in a certain way, they get they get attention. They get pulled towards it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that they can't quite hide their curiosity, and sometimes the curiosity comes out as hostility. I'm thinking about, you probably know Joe Rogan. Joe has a lot of kind of anti-Catholic bigots, a lot of potty where I'm not offended by bad language. Maybe I should be more, but I just listen to the content more. And when you've been raised Catholic and you leave and you think you know what you left, it's harder to reach that person, I think, because they feel like, I got the T-shirt, I know what that is,
Yeah, but the whole world is screwed up. I in the beginning I got super offended. I don't even get offended anymore because it's just people talking. Yeah. It makes no sense. They have hollow comments. They just talk about things. It's like in Holland, they don't like America. The Americans are so fake. In California, they're so fake. I said, did you ever go to America? No. They just listen to other people. If you go to Holland, I talked to Father Fryer here, who was a friend of ours as well. His buddy is working in Amsterdam as a priest. He did 3 confessions last year. 3 in the entire year. Because there it's not cool. There's, because other people talk about it. But that's a whole different country. There's an example. In Holland, you had they really care. That's here in America too. It's everywhere in the world. They really care what other people think about them. And if they say, oh, that's not true, boss, then I give him the biggest example. You have a guy, Joep van het Hek. He had a New Year's conference, and he was talking about the beer Buckler, a non-alcoholic beer. Yeah. And he started making fun of the Buckler beer. He says, oh, stupid beer, I'm a Buckler guy. He did this weird thing about Buckler. Killed the company. Nobody bought Buckler anymore. They were afraid to buy Buckler because then other people might say, oh, he's one of those Buckler people. Yep. You see, now I'm the opposite. They say that about me. And I never drank Buckler. Now I'm going to drink Buckler. I'm going to do the opposite. Yeah. Tell me, I'm not a man. I would love you to do that, But that's just, people are wired different, and it's stupid. And of course, the pedophile priests, right? That's the first thing that they come with. And, it makes no sense. I debunk these people with always, first of all, you have to watch out what you're saying. Because in your family, if you have 100 people, 130 people, there's 3 pedophiles in your family. That means if they're in your family and you're saying the church, they're all pedophiles, that makes you a pedophile too. So if you have a murderer in the family, or just a criminal or a robber, or whatever it is, that makes you want to? No, it doesn't make. I say, okay, let's say this. What if you met the math teacher? A math teacher taught you 8 + 8 is 16. And now somewhere around the world, because we have to understand that everything that Jesus preached, the New Testament, especially what we're living by as Catholics, it's all about love, it's all about truth, it's all about forgiving, right? Mm-hmm. And I start a conversation like that, and nobody can deny that. That's 100% proof. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so if you have a math teacher, teaches you 8 + 8 is 16, but now somewhere around the world, another math teacher has an inappropriate relationship with a minor, is 8 + 8 still 16, or did that change?
Yeah.
And they say, no, it's still 16. I say, well, that's exactly what the book doesn't change. Jesus didn't change. It's bad people. I mean, for crying out loud, we have the Judas in the first 12, so they're everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and pedophile priest is one of those rhyming, alliterative phrases that editors love, even though statistically it's very, very rare that a priest is a true pedophile. We're talking about, predators, 81% from 1950 to 2002 were teen boys, adolescent boys. So it's not even the problem that they say that it is. But you have to keep repeating the same thing. And Bas, isn't it important to not be defensive when people start attacking? If you get like angry, then you're failing.
You're failing. It's just explaining to them. And I said, and the best thing I can say is, I was exactly the same. Don't think that I didn't drink and I was exactly like them. I was super ignorant. I was just repeating what other people told me. The same as what I said. Oh, they never went to America, but yet everybody's stupid here. Because they fake laugh at you. Say, oh, how are you doing? I said, what do you say in Holland? Hey, hoe gaat het? You know what that means? How are you doing? It's exactly the same thing. What are you talking about? It makes no sense to me. And then they've never been here. So how can you say bad things about the faith if you never looked into it? This is my biggest thing. I tell everybody, why don't you go and try for 6 months? 6 months in a lifetime. It's nothing, But if you go 6 months and you get a good theologian, you get some good classes and people start talking. Listen, I'm not a brainiac at all. I in school, I just, all the things that I liked, of course, I was good at, excelled. The other things I wasn't. I love this because there's so much stuff that goes on. Everything comes from the book, the whole, how you change your thinking, how the images, the senses, bring it to the image to the memory to the cogitative power. And it goes, you send up, you got the irascible and the concupiscible appetites, and it sends it up to the will. And he makes a judgment. These things are so super important. And once you understand those and where that you can stop sinning, well, that's when the senses come in. So if you understand that whole process and how it exactly works, which is a really cool thing to know. And actually, psychologists nowadays use exactly the same methods that these sheep herders, uneducated, and it's all in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful book. And I'll talk about India. The book of the Hindu. 2,000 years before that, Roy Varghese. He also came to speak with us. The Christ Connection.
I know Roy Abraham Varghese. Yeah.
And he was talking about that. And then there's 7 identical points 2,000 years before the Passion happened. Somebody will be born from a virgin. He will be spit out for the people that are not going to understand him. He will be bound on a stick. His hands and feet will be pierced, but his bones would not be broken. He would wear a crown of thorns. Are you crazy? He would drink a sour drink. And it keeps going on. And his laments would be divided among them. And then the last one, which freaked everybody out, and that's why they thought it wasn't true, was that they said, in order to live like him, you have to eat him and drink him. And they thought, whoa, that's cannibalism.
Yeah.
But then 2,000 years later, that exact thing happens. You see, those things freak me out.
How do you respond when people object to that line of thinking? They say, yeah, see, Christianity's not true. It's a copycat of all these other myths. It's just the latest Jewish version of the same myth. Therefore, it's not legit.
Yeah, he staged his whole passion and he did everything. And he told, hey, by the way, you break everybody's bones, the shins. You don't do that with me because in the scriptures, that's what he told to Pontius Pilate. That's what you think, or to the emperor at the time. It's the dumbest thing to think like this. But then again, we're working with people who are ignorant, and it's unfortunately, and I don't call everybody, but it's the social media, it's the phones, it's a short attention span, it's making sure that we can't focus anymore because they want to sell us all this stuff that we don't need. I'm bigger cars and bigger this, and the more I have, the more more I'm better. I mean, I always tell people there's nothing that you can buy that makes you dumb, smart, cool, or uncool. There's nothing you can drive. All these guys with the big cars, that makes you a real man. It's impossible. Nothing, there's no amount of money or car that's a measurement of who you are. That's very simple. It's like that. But we grow up in a culture that we think it is. If I have a bigger car than him, then I'm a cool guy. It's the dumb. And thankfully, when I was a kid, I already didn't do that. I loved it. My mother, in the beginning, I didn't love it because when I did track and fields, everybody had Adidas, they had all these cool brands. I didn't have because my mom would make my own clothing for me. But then I realized, wait a minute, this is unique. Nobody else has that. Because they would tell me, they say, so you don't have Adidas? They say, no, everybody can buy that. Nobody can buy this. Yeah. There's only one of this. You see, so I always had that. I thought it was cooler to do the opposite of what the other people did or kids did.
Well, isn't that's the heart of a rebellion, right? I have a friend who lives near you, Mike Miley. He's one of the top rock drummers in the world. He's the drummer for a super successful band called Rival Sons. They've opened for Ozzy Osbourne, Rolling Stones, and Mike goes to Mass every day. So who's the real rebel? Yep.
They have everything screwed up. I have people, when I started going back to church and daily Mass, the people that are older people that literally tell me, you inspire me so much, the things that they say to you, and you realize, because there is no youth in the church. There is, but not as much. And then, turn your phone off. Well, why is it every freaking Mass a phone goes off?
Totally.
You cannot leave it in there. And what about, I love this the most, Scott Hahn, actually, I heard him say this in the speech that he had, and I used it to people who leave right away after the Eucharist, they leave, right? I say, who the first one was who left Mass early, right? It was Judas.
Yeah, the Judas shuffle.
So then they go, I say, you cannot even pay respect to the choir? Stay 5 minutes longer and applaud for them. Thankfully, they did a great job. They did rehearsals during the week. You can't even do that. Is that the sign of a real Catholic? No. Yeah. Read Revelation 3:16 is what I say.
Revelation 3:16.
Vomit you out of your mouth.
Boss, I have a T-shirt. My T-shirt says, "Don't be God's barf." Yeah. The lukewarm, I will vomit from my mouth. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I can tell you're an avid reader. Has someone introduced you to Frank Sheed yet? Sheed.
Nope.
Frank Sheed has a book. He's just one of the top English language writers. I know you're gonna. Well, now I told you about him. Frank Sheed famously said, among other things, he's talking about when people make bad comments about Catholics who are sinners, public Catholics who fail in leadership, whether it's a layman or a priest. Sheed's response to this is, look, you're supposed to judge medicine by people who take it, not by people who neglect it. And the people who take the medicine are called saints. And that's how we're supposed to be. And the only reason we're not saints right now is because we don't will it.
Yep. I love that. I love that saying. I talk, my thing is with Catholics, they say, I go every week to church. I say, but you study, you learn about it. They go, no, I do that. I say, well, you're Catholic, but you're not a practicing Catholic then. I mean, if you don't learn anything about it, I mean, that's the same saying as you walk in my gym once a week and now you're a professional fighter. It's not going to work like that. You're going to have to take the classes in the gym in order to understand the fighting. Well, you're going to have to read the book. You have to take classes and understand the Bible. So start doing that. You will grow in virtue as well, but also then you start understanding it and you start enjoying it. That's another thing. When you go to church, it's all for me, 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 me. No, you're going there for Jesus. You don't go there for yourself. They all got it flipped around. We have 1.2, what did they say, billion Catholics in the world. For what I understand, 1 million of them does a daily rosary. 1 million of the 1.2 million people there are, and I think that if more people would start doing that, or daily rosary, I think it's a very powerful thing.
Isn't it true that if you commit to praying the rosary every day, as an example, it's oil and water. You can't sin at the same level. It's not going to happen. So it's like, you want your glass full of the graces from the prayers, or do you want to just kind of give it all away as a sinner? Do you find that if your prayer life diminishes, you're going to be dead meat?
I can do it without what I'm doing right now. I have this entire planned it out with a few guys also. We text every day in the morning what all the prayers we did, so everybody's on top of it all the time. We're doing this for years now. But there's this whole set of prayers that I start with and do, and consecrated to Mary to Jesus through Mary. The little crown, all that.
Yep.
We do all these things, and it never happens that I can't do it today because it will mess me up. So I have to do it before I go to sleep. I have to do the act of contrition, and after that, all the prayers that I do for the day, I go an examination of conscience. I do it right pointing here because I'm outside in my backyard, and I'm always going to sit outside. I relax. I go over the day. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What can I do even better? Maybe next time, what did I do wrong? Let's not do that anymore. Let's throw an act of contrition out before I go to sleep. And cough that up to the Lord, and then in the morning I wake up and I start doing the same thing. So and it makes me complete. I told my wife, I said I cannot even do it without. I remember missing a mass all the way in the beginning when I got back into the faith, and then Leo told me, he says there's never a reason to miss mass, and I thought that I was really trying, but then you realize you're not really trying. There is always a reason, because since then I never missed a mass anymore. I missed one in Greece because they advocated on the website and on Mass app. It said it was 11 o'clock. And it wasn't. It was at 10 o'clock. So when I walked in, she said, no, it's not there. And she didn't give me any attention, the woman who worked there. But then she saw me go to the site, and I pulled my rosary out. I started praying the rosary, and I figured, at least I do that then, here in the church. And then she came over to me, and suddenly I felt her hand on my shoulder because I had my eyes closed. And she says, don't worry, God sees that you tried to go to Mass. I said, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So I think in the beginning she just thought I was somebody who came in and just wanted to see it. But then she realized, he's actually dedicated about it. And then she gave me a few good words.
There's a beautiful anecdote that Saint Therese of Lisieux tells in her autobiography, Story of a Soul. She's committed to praying an hour each day in front of the Blessed Sacrament. It's just part of her life as a nun. And one time she fell asleep. She was tired. She fell asleep, and she woke up, and she was apologizing to the Lord, and she sensed the Lord telling her, Therese, it doesn't matter to a father if his daughter is awake in his lap or asleep.
Oh, wow. St. Therese is a big thing with us also. She's right here on a wall where water comes down. This wall has been put on 14 years ago. And they asked me, and we're not religious at all at the time. I completely removed myself. I was baptized and I did my confirmation, but my parents stopped going to church when I was 12 years old. So we never got back to it. But then he said, what do you want on the wall? Ernesto is the person who works for us, is a good friend of ours. And I said, I'll do anything. He said, it can be a religious thing. I said, sure, put something nice on it. St. Therese comes on it. Boom.
Really?
But I didn't know it was St. Therese. So then I got back into the faith. And then I go to the St. Therese Church. It started with that. Not even tonight, because I still didn't know that this was St. Therese. I go to St. Therese Church because there was where Leo was doing his talks, weekly talks, going deeper, we call it. And that's where I went. So then I figured, okay, that's St. Therese again. And then I came home to my wife and I said, listen, I want to get married for the church. And she goes, wow, you're really going? I said, oh, really? But she saw me change. And she said, immediately she said, yes. Oh, that's another great thing. My wife always said, I don't need to go to church. I noticed something. I live my life like a good person, and trust me, she's a really good person. I said, but I never had the feeling to go to church. I don't think I need it. So after I told her that I want to become a Catholic, that I wanted to marry her for the Catholic Church, the next day, around noon, I couldn't get a hold of her. And finally she calls me back. I say, hey, where were you? She says, oh, I was doing Mass. I go, excuse me? He says, yeah, and I just signed up for RCIA classes as well. And I go, I didn't even ask her. So what took tons of reasoning and arguments and everything for me was immediately accepted by my wife. She immediately went to Mass, and then we got married. So then we married in St. Therese Church. Then her best friend is, how you call it, she's the person who helps her. Well, the name I just shoot away. But anyway, no, for the wedding, to prepare to go to the wedding.
Oh, yeah, like a bridesmaid? Maid of honor?
No. She was the person for the Catholic faith who would instruct her. Do you know who's with her when we're married?
Oh, the witness.
It's like a witness. But her name is also, she's named after St. Therese.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then one time I'm sitting here in the front, and now I know it's St. Therese. So everything starts clapping together. And I'm sitting doing my daily examination of conscience. And I go, and it's 5 minutes before 12. And I'm looking back and I see Therese, and I go, you know what? I just did my prayers. I'm going to Google her. I'm going to look up and see what she's all about. And I started reading about it. And this was September 30th. September 30th was the day that she passed away. 10 minutes later, when I was still reading, was her feast day.
Yep.
I mean, what are the chances that I'm looking up who she is on the day she passed away, going into the next day, because it was 10 minutes before midnight, and that's her feast day.
That's
And then the last one it was crazy. All these connections came together. And then I got one time I went with a friend of mine, Antonio Sabata Jr. He's also a Catholic. And we went to Leo again, and we went to St. Therese again. And he was standing next to me. We came a little bit late in Mass because there was a lot of traffic. It's like a long time drive. It's now 45 minutes to get there. So we had some problem. Anyway, I get in, and I'm standing right away. We're a little late, so I'm standing and hold my eyes closed. And he pokes me in my face. And so, but I smile, and I go, like, whatever, And then afterwards, I say, dude, what was that all about? And he said, what? I say, the poke you. Like, you poked me hard in my face. And he said, I did poke you in the face. And then I talked to Leo about it. And Leo said, at St. Therese, she either does flowers or she's pushing people. And I go, man, this is the wildest thing ever. So there's like 5, 6 things that all came back to St. Therese. So she's in my prayers every day as well.
I have a complaint about the image of St. Therese of Lisieux. I've got 2 little minor complaints about my Catholic faith, and they both have to do with art and kind of popular ideas. And one is, let me start with St. Joseph. St. Joseph, to me, is a real man. Tough.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine God's design and his plan to have St. Joseph take care of the most beautiful woman in the world, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. He's going to be, I'm going to use a profanity, he's going to be a little badass. He's got to be a little dangerous going from Jerusalem, to Egypt and so on. But the depictions of St. Joseph, he's like a 95-year-old guy with a flower. It's like, I can't relate to that kind of old, weak thing. Bishop Sheen, who's my spiritual father, Fulton J. Sheen, he says, no, St. Joseph was young, strong, and chaste. And that's why he's so awesome. But Thérèse of Lisieux, the idea of her as the little flower, no way. She was a warrior. To me, she's the MMA fighter of the spiritual life. Tough.
Yeah, Jesse Moore told me, MMA, Mother Mary's Army. And he says, Boss, your talks, you should call from UFC to UFC, from Ultimate Fighting Champion to Ultimate Faithful Catholic. I go, man, I love the title. I'm going to use it.
I was with Jesse and Terry at the Consecration of Mary on December 8th. And he threw out a couple of good acronyms. COPS, too. We're COPS. Catholics on Patrol.
Yeah. That guy's the best. Ask him about the exorcism story that he helped his priester buddy with 4 of his own friends from the gym, with the 95-year-old woman on the walker walking in. And he looks at the priest and he goes like, and the priest is a linebacker also. He's 245 pounds. And he looks at him and he goes, that's it? And the priest goes, just wait. And as soon as they put her in front of the Blessed Sacrament, she's puffed up. Grabbed the priest, threw the priest, grabbed Jesse, threw Jesse. Jesse's wife was there. She told me she saw him flying through the air like that. It's crazy. If you talk to Father Ripperger also, about the things. I like I said, I just came back from a retreat again, and Father Ripperger was there. If you hear what happens at those exorcisms, I said, man, listen, give me 6 more months, to get. I want to be more solid, just to make sure, because I want to be attending one. I would love to be there and be your helper and experience that thing, because I kind of experienced it already before in my house. So, and my other friend said right away, he wants to do it right away. I said, no, I need a little bit more strong, just to make sure. Not that he suddenly goes like this, hey, boss, are you here? With a different voice.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Father Gary Thomas is going to come back to my show. He's the exorcist for the Diocese of San Jose. He's the real-life priest from the movie The Rite, starring Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, okay.
So, and he's got some hairy stories, too. Okay, Bas, let's close with this. Let's go back to the ghost. Whatever happened to the ghost? That was it? You challenged and nothing else?
Nothing else. She moved away. She moved away. We also moved, actually. It's half a mile away, less than half a mile away from this house. Yeah. But I wanted to move to a different house. I would like to have a pool, because I like to do pool workouts. So, and then I fought one more fight. This was 2006. And when I had that fight, I had the money to get to a house with a pool, and that's why we moved to this place. But yeah, it stopped right away after I did that. Nice, man. Well, I could talk your ear off, Bas. I just had such a great time hanging out with you today. So thanks so much for coming on the show. I'll throw one more name at you, because I have a membership site called Coffin Nation. We've got members in 5 different countries, and every month we have a special interview called Transform You. And last month's guest is Dr. Suzanne Bars. Her father is a famous Dutch psychiatrist, Conrad Bars, Baars. Okay. This guy
total genius. His sweet spot, or his kind of insight, is the power of affirmation and the fact that human emotions are good. Our feelings, our emotions are for living. We can't suppress them. We have to embrace them. And this guy spent 19 months in a concentration camp during World War II. Just I could go on and on and on. But I'm bringing this up because I want to put his name and his books in the show notes too at patrickcoffin.media. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe. patrickcoffin.media is the website. Basrutten.com, right? BASRUTTEN.com?
That's it.
So you train people. You've got all kinds of products. You're into full-on health, mind, body, spirit. Can people connect with you for speaking? You speak at conferences?
Yeah, CatholicSpeakers.com.
CatholicSpeakers.com.
Joe Condit, he's my guy. I did one in Cincinnati last year for 1,500 people. I was the keynote speaker there, and about what it is to be a man. You know,
awesome.
And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Phenomenal. Well, thanks for being a gift. You're a true champion of the spirit, and it's an honor to hang out with you, Bas. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is the Patrick Coffin Show. Be a saint. What else is there? Hey, this is Patrick Coffin. If you like what you see and hear, and you want to see and hear more, consider joining Coffin Nation as a full member. Just click right here and find out more about what that means. Nipsey, my fedora. That's Coffin Nation, the world's largest online community of culture builders. Click right here. See you on the inside.